Hello, everybody. Sorry for what I didn't realize until after, which is that I recorded a playthrough of Vayne versus Garen without actually having my mic on. So, unfortunately, I have to kind of go back and re-record the voiceover. Um, at least, it'll be interesting. At least I got this mistake out of the way early. Was playing Vayne, have Gwynsu's Rageblade equipped as my relic, and we do not have any star powers yet. Rules of kind of how I'm playing these is that I have to beat all the 1-star missions before I get the 1-star power and so on. This is one of the earlier levels. They don't tend to be too difficult, but if you don't have, a bunch of powers already, then it isn't bad. I end up taking enemies have -1/-0 because it's just generically good. And my last run, I had kind of the perfect power, which is to get free equipment at the start of the game. And I want to see how Vayne's deck does on its own without kind of a almost perfect power. So something that is generically good was interesting. So I get rid of the fish fight because I don't have any equipment. I think that card's going to be a lot worse when I don't have as many ways to equip units. In general, I think it's a solid card and decent option for removal, but until I have equipment, it's kind of whatever. I assume that Vayne's power has something to do with equipment, but I don't actually know that. I haven't actually looked. It'll be interesting to see on stream when it happens, or not on stream, on the recording when it happens. So play out some 2/4s, play out a 2/3. It is really interesting that this 1-drop is just a 2/4. Like, usually they, in the lore Path of Champions decks, they make the 1-drops a draw card so that they're a bit more relevant. They don't feel as bad to play. In this case, they tried just giving this elk a ton of stats because with toughness, a 2/4 is actually pretty difficult to get through. And if you can beef that up even a little bit more, it actually becomes better than a lot of more expensive cards, and cheap strong units are very good, especially in some of the later levels where you need to be ready for the computer to play multiple units right away on that first turn. So I made sure to get Vayne down. We're using Tumble to get in some attacks, force a block, because obviously otherwise they would die. And I think we just play this 2/3. It's kind of interesting going back and watching, like, and now I'm thinking, well, what would I have done here? And I'm like, I think I would have gone for mana efficiency, but it is possible I should go for just the 2/4 elk instead, because I still don't have any equipment anyway, so we're just playing a 2/3. Ultimately, it doesn't actually matter in this round, because they start with very little life and are pretty consistently just dead if you play creatures every turn, play units every turn.
A sentinel's work is never done.
One thing, having played through all of this level, and now I've gotten some games with Vayne, because this is only the second time I've ever played Vayne, is she's always so serious. I know I take the Castaway. This card improvises, which means that it'll give you a choice between 2 random improvise equipments, and you get to pick one of them, right? Kind of perfect for this deck, where I'm saying I do not have a way to actually get equipment consistently. There's just 2 Demacian, the 1-mana Demacian equipment that's 1 mana +1/+1. Here, I kind of talk about how even though Ornn is on theme and is equipment based, I don't really want it because Ornn and Ornn's cards are meant for these long games, and Vayne's deck is built very aggressively. Sejuani is like kind of interesting, and I go to select it, and then I realize that Twisted Fate is Bilgewater, and I think that this card I took previously, despite being a multi-region, is part Bilgewater. It's a weird point, but I like keeping the regions kind of tight, because if you branch out into too many regions, you start seeing cards from, like, everything. And I really don't like that, because it means that some of the later picks, you have to pick cards and you're out of rerolls, and that aren't all that good for your deck, and that can make things actually kind of awkward if you draw, say a bunch of expensive cards in an opening hand. Even against some of these early levels, it can work against you pretty quickly. Now, in this case, we have, like the quote-unquote combo, which is this 1-drop plus an equipment that gives +1/+1 for 1 mana. Which means that this is going to be a 3/5 tough on turn 2, which honestly, even against some of like the later levels would be quite good. It doesn't matter if you're fighting like 3/3s on turn 1 if you get to make a 3/5 tough right away. And you have a bunch of other cards that care about equipping as well, so Vayne's deck can work quite well as long as you get like that first equipment online. And having, unlike a lot of the other decks that care about equipment, like Kane's or Varus's or Ornn's deck, Legends of Runeterra have a little bit of trouble there. I think the servers were a little funky yesterday. But unlike those decks, this Vayne's deck really can benefit a lot from having multiple equipped creatures, specifically because of the 2-drop, which we don't have in hand here, but it gives allies all, equipped allies all +1/+1. It was a weird attack from the computer. Like, why? Why would you do that? It's a very strange choice. You just attacked a 1/1 into multiple things. But here we get to get a free attack in, which I need for one of the quests anyway. Equip the second equipment we drew. We are now there. We have both in hand, or both of them drawn now. And also we get to make a third equipment. I don't think it comes up in this game, but in theory, if we then drew that 2-mana, I think it's like Ranger Knight something, all our creatures would get, or all our units would get +1/+1, and that's pretty good. As it is, there's no thinking here. They're just dead. Computer chooses not to block the thing with the most power for some reason. I was trying, it's like, doesn't matter at all. They were dead either way, but like, so they went for the trade. But it's interesting to note, just because I play so many of these, how the AI seems to rank and prioritize things. Like, when will they chump block versus when will they not? Seems to be something to do with like how much damage it is versus their health. Because like things with 40 life will sometimes block, or won't block things that someone at like 20 life, or a computer with 20 life will. It's very interesting. Here we just take a generically good card. It's another aggressive card, this 2-drop. I tend to be pretty conscious about making sure that I have early plays, especially in these aggressive decks. Here I take Toughness on Vayne. I don't really want to put anything onto Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate is okay, and we do have some ways to draw cards, which can especially come up against Ashe, where, because her deck just Frostbite so much, it's nice to have a champion like Twisted Fate, where the value is going to come from him just sitting in play, because they're unlikely to be able to kill the Twisted Fate. They only have a couple of removal spells that will actually remove them, and we're not going to block with Twisted Fate. Here they play a bird. They get right away from their power, I think. They just get one of those birds, so they get to attack us. It's very rude. We took our first damage of the run. And we play Zealous Ranger Knight, which is the 2-drop I was talking about, where it says attack, give all equipped allies +1/+1. We attack with our 2s. They don't block for some reason. Or they don't block, which is actually, I mean, that's actually the correct choice, but I thought that they would. So apparently a 15 health person won't, or a 15 health computer won't block 2s, or trump block 2s. Just throw them away to like preserve their life total. It's interesting. We take Pot of Pain here because it makes it into a 3/3, which means that it survives all of the birds, so they just won't attack now. It also gives impact, which is nice, but it was +1/+2. So here I play the other Castaway and take the, I think I take the Fish-a-Whack. But I realized this was a little bit of a mistake because it's going to get +1/+1 from the Ranger, where Toughness would have actually let it survive. As it is, it's fine. We can just put the equipment somewhere else. It's not that big of a deal. But I would have rather had the unit stick around, especially because we can keep buffing it. But it works out fine. They make some blocks. Now they will chump block. I'm not sure what the change was. Oops, sorry, my phone is ringing.
No fixing that.
Just gonna turn that off.
New recruit reporting in.
Ultimately, we get to play our dog, our loyal doggo, and we can use Fish Fight if we want, but I don't think we do, yeah. It's like, I was looking at the 0-2 and the 1-2, and like, I don't know that we care about those. We can just kill something later if we need to. I think I specifically even referenced, like, that I want to hold on to Fish Fight in case they play one specific card, which is a like kind of a challenger lord that gives all of your units with challenger +1/+1 when it attacks. I take some time to look at the art and read this dude's story because he said something about like his sister, and it was really like the line there was weird and made no sense, and I still don't really know what it means. But apparently he has a sister who turned into something. She turned into a something, whatever that means. So I assume that there's some sort of little mini story or like hinted at backstory for that card, but I have no idea what it really is. As it is, I don't really care about playing this 5/5 for 5. It's kind of generic-y and not great. And we're going to leave them at 1. I kind of assumed we were going to kill them, not really doing the math because math is for blockers. And it didn't. So I considered throwing the pick a card into the pick a card, but instead I just decided I want to draw 4 because drawing either Vayne or Twisted Fate should win. Because we can red card with Twisted Fate, and of course we just draw it because we are that good. But we didn't even need to. We didn't even need to draw extra cards. We could have just kept all of our hand.
All right, let's get to work.
Oh, but then I choose. I forgot. I choose to play Vayne, so I get this tumble, so that I can attack with the fisherman-looking dude. Solely because I have that mission that I saw earlier. That was I need to get in free attacks, so we decided to kill him with impact instead of with Twisted Fate.
A sentinel's work is never done.
Also, Vayne's voice lines all sound really similar. Like, she's just super serious and is like, "The work is never done. I will end their suffering. I will end their pain." She's like Batman, but more boring. Not my favorite. I love Vayne in League of Legends. I am less a fan of Vayne as a card in lore because she's not really fun. I took the card that we already had, the Royal Watchdog or whatever. It is a 2/3 now with Challenger, and that is going to give that item to other cards in our deck. Bouncing Blade's kind of terrible. I take this Duelist card because it's decent, and I decided to take Cataclysm also because it says free attack, and that matters for Vayne. And it also matters for this quest thing, so like, why not? But it's just generally a good card, and having removal for Ashe specifically is quite good in this next round. You can really get kind of cheesed out of games by suddenly having not enough blockers against a leveled up Ashe where everything with 0 power cannot block anymore. So having a way to remove a Vayne from the board is very important, especially because she's also going to frostbite another thing when she comes down. So you can save yourself a lot of either potential headache and like fear of losing, or just actual losing by not dealing with that. So as it is, I know I'm throwing back this 5 mana 5/5. I don't really care about it. I don't think it's that good of a card. I get rid of pick a card also because that's the sort of card that I want to draw a little bit later to shuffle back like an awkward 1-drop or something that I don't really need, or is just sitting in my hand to try and buy more impactful cards, right? Or like if Twisted Fate's in play, then use it that way. As it is, we don't draw into a cheap card despite all the 1s and 2s in our deck. We have like 4 1-drops and 6 or 8 2-drops, and we decide to draw none of them. But luckily, neither does the computer, so we're under actually no pressure now. So I play Vayne, get Tumble, which I can play, and I play this Rhyme Tusk Shaman. So I consider for a minute the possibility that I want to do something else, like try this attack first to see if they have Flash Freeze, which is the 3 mana Frostbite something. Because if they do Flash Freeze, we can't really attack into this very effectively. We're just kind of taking damage on our Vayne for no reason. I decide to just see what happens and get the equipment on the second attack, because it could raise the power, and then maybe that's a little bit of a benefit. Instead, we'll just Tumble now, because they just didn't have the card that I spent a bunch of time considering. But it's one of the more obvious spell effects for your decks to have is Flash Freeze, especially because they didn't do anything turn 1 and 2. Their hand has to all be cards that cost 3 or more, right? And Flash Freeze just seemed likely. Now they shatter our 06 toughness Vayne, so she goes down to 3 toughness and has tough still. Not sure that that was the play I would have made, but the computer can do what it wants. I play Steadfast Elk, which is a 2/4, and then I play Piltover Castaway, which will equip right away. We take this combat reel because it refills 1 spell mana, and just generally the spell mana feels really good to get with Vayne's deck because you get all these tumbles that you want to play. Now, they attack with their 4/3 into our 2/4. We could just block here, but it's just a bunch of damage for no reason, and honestly, I don't mind losing the 4 health. I think that we're in a really good position where they don't have that much in play, and aren't doing a whole lot. So I could consider my options here. There's some different choices like playing the Ranger Captain, because we have a couple things. I decided to play Twisted Fate because he's stunned. So it's effectively like we got another attacker, and also we got rid of the Ash. Now in this case, I go to attack for 8 and then realize that because of the Gwinsu's, how do you say it? Rage Blade, she's actually going to get that 9th power. And they did not play a unit. Apparently their deck was all very expensive cards. So we just win. This is probably one of the quickest times I've ever beat Ash with like a 0 star power Path of Champions character. That Ash level, if you're playing, unless you've already kind of souped up your deck, can be really brutal. Like when it was in one of the weeklies a couple weeks ago, and it was my partner Nathan was streaming it, that level combined with one of the like epic powers where you could only have 1 unit per turn was absolutely brutal. It was probably like one of the hardest fights that either of us have ever played, as opposed to and it's because the constant frostbite and all of the cards that she plays can really shut down aggressive strategies. So if you don't have removal, you can just kind of get run over by Ash. Now here, I take Fearsome. I want more Vaynes. I considered putting Draw card on Twisted Fate, but ultimately I don't care too much. I decided to Wild Inspiration. Your created cards cost 1 less, because we make tumbles pretty consistently. And I go for the item chest. Now we could have gone for the shop to see if we could get another like good power or something, which isn't a feature that you have until like you even unlock until like some number of levels into the mode. But also I don't really want to gamble like that. Items are pretty much always going to be good, and so I tend to prefer those over getting powers. Here, I think that just taking the good item is more consistent, where like wasting resources and whatever, like in theory it could matter. Ultimately, I think we're probably just going to beat Garen easily at this point, because it's not that difficult of a level, and nothing is popping up that makes me feel like our deck is weak. We've even gotten some like decent picks. As it is, they end up playing a bunch of 1-drops on turn 1, or on turn 2, because we didn't have a 1-drop, and all we have is this 1/2 because we've again drawn kind of awkwardly and don't really have a play. Now, on the other hand, we took Fearsome on Vayne, and if you'll notice, because of our very first power, all of our enemies having -1/-0, they can't actually block the Vayne. So Vayne just keeps attacking here. So it puts them from 16 to 11, which is perfect because we don't want them to block and trade with anything, because those Dawn Speakers will make everything bigger, and suddenly now Vayne can be blocked, right? So instead, I kind of just ignore it. Now they put a counter onto this Dawn Speaker, but that doesn't do a lot. I end up playing the Castaway because I want to scare them off of blocking a little bit. I go with the Sandsworn Amulet over the Shepherd's Authority, because the whole point is to have a blocker, and Shepherd's Authority says they can't block. They play another Dawn Speaker, which would be quite scary, but I don't even think that they can't really even get in for that much damage, and we have blockers for everything technically, but I would actually just not block if they attacked with all 3, and they would just deal 3 damage, because I do not want to give them 3 Dawn Speaker triggers. That would be a very quick way to lose. Instead, I will just attack with Fearsome units. But I did even notice that the Castaway, I forgot that the Sandstone
I
Amulet.
will release them from their pain.
Ooh, Vayne flipped. I didn't notice that the Sandstone Amulet gave Fearsome, but we could have attacked with that too, just to really rub it in that we won against the AI who doesn't have emotions or feelings or thoughts about it.
A sentinel's
But,
work is never done.
We could do it. So we see Demacian Steel, which is the equipment we already have. It has Challenger. All of our things generally have Challenger anyway. Some of our units have Challenger. There's lots of Challenger, but I'm still going to take it because adding 2 copies of that card is quite good for us. If you've noticed, the deck is so much better having equipped units than not, because everything that's on the Vayne side of this deck, that's in Vayne's starting deck, right, cares about having equipment, or things equipped, or seeing something get equipped. So I take the Steadfast Elk Giant's Belt. So now it's a 2/6 when we play it, which is quite strong. And correct that, which I knew was coming really. But buy a power of +1/+0 is quite strong. I could buy more Elks. I actually don't like getting Nab because I find that, like, especially if I'm stacking up a unit to have Nab, or to have more copies of them anyway, I then end up nabbing a bunch of their cards, and their cards at that point aren't as good as my cards, so I don't really want them. I don't want to draw them from my opponent's deck. Instead, I would rather just draw my own cards and not clog up my hand with those. So, talking about how this is a 2/6, it's a 3/6 now, but it's just a giant ball of stats, and that's going to be really difficult for all these early levels to beat anyway. But especially here where we get to go, again, 1-drop into play an equipment on it, so it's going to become a 4/7 toughness. Or 4/7 tough, I mean. Where that's pretty impossible for these early decks to get through for the first several turns of the game. Like, this Kindly Tavern Keeper might have, like, an Alpha Wild Claw, but that's a 6-drop.
These old eyes still
And that's going to be, if that's in their deck, that's the only thing that can actually get to 7 power. Oh, actually, it doesn't even matter. I forgot the tough. It's a 4/7, not a 4/6, so it's just not big enough to even get through this elk.
Demons walk
Like,
among
more or less,
us,
nothing the
masquerading
opponent
as
does
men.
is that relevant.
The white
Now,
elk's
funny enough,
bones.
I make sure to put this 1/3 in front of the elk because I don't want to attack that 0/5. Because it deals 1 damage to me. Again, don't think I'm going to lose, but saving that 1 point of health, especially in some of the later levels in, like, similar situations, can really, really be important. In the matches, you know, like, when I beat Aurelion Sol with Annie, I ended the match with, like 7 health or something like that after starting with 40. It's... Every time you can save a point or two, it can really be game-changing. So here we get a free attack. I consider doing this. Yeah, I do. I was going to say, I think I switched to the 0/5, but
Purifying bolt.
whatever. It doesn't really matter what I pick here. Ultimately, she also got a pickaxe, which is, like, nice. We have +2 more power onto Vayne, because why not? Oh, that's what I do. And then I condemn the 0/5 just to get it out of the way. Be gone, 0/5. For the first time ever, cast Condemn. Cool animation. I really liked it. Shove it into the back wall of the opponent, basically. Purge with silver.
By my hand, I
Her
will
voice
end
lines,
their
like, one of them is like,
suffering.
I will release them from their evade, and this one is like, I will end their suffering. They're so similar that I don't even realize in this, if I remember right, that she said a different line. I really wish that they had made her, like, a little bit
Expertly done. Now
more,
to root out the
like,
next
have a
fate.
little bit more dimension to her character. She's just kind of exactly the same always. Now here we could make Twisted Fates cost 1 less. I don't really want to draw a bunch of Twisted Fates. I end up taking this Piltover and Castaway. The equipment works really well with the deck. I still don't know what this level does. I don't know at this point. I went this way because I wanted to see what Yordle Grifter was. I don't know what that third option is. It says 300 gold, And there's a heart thing at the bottom. It's like plus 500, like heart plus minus 500. I don't know what that means. Still don't know what it means. I take it to try and figure out what it is. As far as I can tell, I just have a bunch of gold. I don't really know what that was, but I just spent a bunch, so like I must have gotten gold somewhere, but I don't see anything that's changed. So I'm still not sure what Yordle Grifter even does with that option. I have to look that up later. Now here, going to cut a card. One of the things that we've noticed is that I have a bunch of expensive cards. I consider just cutting the 5-drop because I am kind of tired of having my hands stuck with all these cards I can't play in the early turns. Just getting rid of this 5-drop that I don't even really want to play anyway could be a way to do that, but ultimately I decided to just heal and say whatever. I get rid of kind of the redundant early plays looking for a Vayne, because Vayne is obviously our best unit, but instead I find a whole lot of nothing, including this 5-drop. Maybe I should have cut it. But ultimately, it's not going to matter too much. We have a 3/6 Challenger on turn 1. They play a kind of useless 1/1 bird. They play a bird. This, amusingly, 2 different opponents in this run went bird, bird, bird at us. And I want to know where they got all these birds. Who gave them all the copies of the birds in their deck, you know? Now we draw Vayne right on time. Exactly when she meant to show up on turn 3. And real easy attack because they can't really do that much. They won't block. We kind of figured that from the earlier level where we had this exact situation come up. But not that big of a deal. They did get some plus power from something. I'm not even clear why. Might be their like power, but they still can't block Vayne. So we're doing what we did to Dawn Speaker, which is just throw a bunch of damage at their face while they can't block with Vayne. And then I think I Cataclysm here because I want to try and flip Vayne anyway. I beat up the I thought I beat up the 0-4, but I decided to beat up the 1-2. I think that I considered beating up the 0-4 because of blockers, but decided I just don't care that much, and I'd rather get rid of the toughness thing. Mostly just because, like, if they were able to pump it somehow, it could be annoying. Tough is a very good keyword in this game.
A noble end.
Now we find an equipment, we can put it on for free with Tumble. Well, sort of for free with Tumble. And that's going to put them to 3. And Flip Vayne. I'm sorry, 2 in Flip Vayne. Because she'll get +1/+1 from leveling up.
I will release
So
them
she is
from their
oh, I lied.
pain.
She's a 12. How did she get to 12? Whatever, it's fine. Maybe I forgot a +1/+1 or something. But yeah, the +1/+1 from Winsu's, I bet.
For justice.
So she's almost dead. Amusingly, they play Garen, which I should have thought about. But because if we had attacked the second time, like if we attacked before with Vayne, right? They could have blocked, but well, no, I guess it doesn't matter. Never mind. I was going to say something, but it's not that relevant.
Not on my watch.
Either way, the Garen gets in the way for exactly enough time to block and save 1 turn. They make an attack, probably the computer kind of assuming that it's dead or something. They do kill whatever that 3/2 was, the toughness thing that we saw one time the entire time. We can just win this turn, so I choose to with a red card, dealing 1 to all enemies. There are none, but it also deals 1 to the Nexus, so GG.
Never lost a fair
And that was the
game
run.
or played one.
Relatively straightforward one. We got a little bit lucky with like how easy the Ashe match was. That one, like, it's not like I lose it often, but I think if I'm going to lose
Sentinel's work is
the
never
run, it's
done.
to that mid boss more than to Garen. I don't know that I've ever lost to Garen. Either way, we get our 305 champion experience from the level 1 or the 1-star adventure. And that is going to put us to level 4. For some reason, it gives me an A, and I'm a little perturbed by this because I have 1,400 gold and full health. Like, what did you want from me? I'm not really quite sure why it didn't give me an S, but fine. So we take our 4 wild fragments, and that is it. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope that you all have a wonderful day, I'll see you again tomorrow for another daily path. And if you have any questions about Path of Champions or about, I don't know, my day or whatever, feel free to ask. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later.